All right, Jay, you have an awful lot of things on your plate, and you've kind of added one more. You're trying to help out Marshall's water situation, right?
Yeah. You know, I was, well, you could call it fortunate, but back in the day as Mayor of Longview, we had some similar issues with old piping, old infrastructure. And so when this first happened, I contacted Mayor Amy Ware to visit with her to see if I could be of any assistance, and that's kind of where it started.
So, and I guess you had a meeting yesterday.
We had a meeting yesterday, meeting last week actually in Austin, and basically in Austin we met with a number of stakeholders, you know, that and what we're doing is trying to find funding, emergency funding, grants, in order for us to put in place a good plan to change the water transmission lines, which is the big problem.
Yeah, and it's
And yesterday was a follow-up with an even larger group, you know, that were working with us on different ideas of what might be available to Marshall.
yeah, because you know this last break they had, that was a main.
Yeah. You know, the thing is at their water treatment plant, let me back up. A lot of this infrastructure we're talking about, they're primarily the transition lines, the lines that take the water from the water treatment plant out to the community, okay? And that piping in some cases is 70, 80, or even years older than that. And you know, they're falling apart. In some cases they have fallen apart. So they need to change those main transition lines, and that's what we're looking to get accomplished.
Yeah, because I guess you know you're kind of explaining to me this last break they had. They just didn't have the valves in place to shut it off.
No. You know, it started, and you and I discussed this, it started back in February when we had that last pretty good freeze. And when that all thawed out, that old piping is wrapped in concrete. It's so old, so brittle, that it just couldn't handle the load at all. And it just started breaking. And they brought in some really good contractors, but you can imagine, you know, once you get the concrete away from the main pipe and try to weld on a 1/8 inch thick piece of pipe that's now not even an 1/8 of an inch, they couldn't even weld it in order to patch it together. By the grace of God, they were able to get it patched, but it's just a matter of time. This is going to continue to happen until these main lines are changed out.
Yeah, and it's and I guess you know they have redone some of the infrastructure,
Yeah.
but they were not main lines. I guess.
No. And they have, let me say, in meeting with the mayor, with the city manager, they have a great, you know, Fire Chief David Rainwater is their acting emergency manager. You know, really aggressive guy. Yesterday, we also had their engineer, Stanley Hayes, there. Great meeting with this really good group of state agencies, federal agencies, to talk about where we can go to find the funding that we need in order to upgrade the transition lines. The latest event, what happened was it broke right there in their 24-inch main line, and they had no way to isolate the two main water towers, which each hold 6 million gallons. The valves that had been installed to isolate those water towers were gone. They were about the same shape as the pipe. So that 12 million gallons worth of clean water was lost. And I've heard stories about when that water came back, you know, out of the towers, it washed away people's driveways, etc. So it's a serious issue, and you know, I'm only offering to help, you know, the community. You know, my job as a state representative is to represent, you know, Harrison County, all of HD7, but to try to help them find solutions to their problems, and that's the extent of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, and it's you know, I guess it's just not always easy to find the funding.
You know, one of the issues, especially in older cities, we had it here in Longview, is they sort of kick the can down the road. Marshall hadn't had a water rate increase for 6 years until just recently. And nobody wants to have to raise the water rates, but if you don't, and you don't build a surplus to deal when the emergency issues come up, now you've got to go and raise it really extremely high. But if you do a little bit at a time, build a surplus so that you can address issues as they come up, it's a better service to the ratepayer, to the citizen.
So is that something they're discussing?
Well, they've already done that. They recently raised the rate, went into effect January. They got a grant for $56 million already to upgrade some of the water treatment plant and the sewer treatment plant. They were actually under TCEQ guidance that they had to do this. Okay, so that 56 million is being supported by a rate increase, but it's over 5 years. To replace the transmission lines that we've talked about, that's about a $10 million project. And it's just common sense. You're gonna repair the water treatment plant, but yet if you can't get water out of the water treatment plant into the broke pipe, what have you accomplished? So we've got to come up with a solution to getting these transmission lines fixed, and that'll eliminate a lot of the problem. And then we'll go to work. They will go to work on the distribution lines that go into the community, the neighborhoods, the downtown. They did a little bit of work downtown already, but it'll be a systematic, upgrade over. It's going to take time, but it'll be a systematic upgrade from what I understand in talking with them. But the number one issue right now, phase one, is getting these transmission lines and isolation valves in place so that you can control when you have a break, so you don't lose all your good, fresh, clean water.
Yeah, and it's and that was a huge problem they had. I guess they had to pretty much shut the whole system down. To stop that.
Hey, look, businesses, homes, schools, everything got shut down. The whole city was with it. There were some low-lying areas that had some water from the water towers, but it was very low pressure. But for the most part, a minimum of 2 days, almost 3 days, the entire community was out of water. And thank God we were able to get 150 cases of bottled water brought in from the Texas Department of Emergency Management. But, people want to turn the faucet on and water comes out. They appreciate the bottled water, but hey, we want our water flowing. And so I hope the citizens of Marshall will understand, exactly what the problems are and what the solutions are, and work together to upgrade this, because it hadn't been done in so long, and a lot of this piping is 70, 80 years old. I was telling the people in Austin last week, Marshall is the oldest city in Northeast Texas. Everything kind of started there. And then the railroad came to Longview, and it went to Jefferson. And they're not quite as old as St. Augustine, but it's a very old community. And they've done a lot of work. Marshall has so much going for it. There's some really great economic development programs that are coming along, and with TSTC there, with ETBU, Wiley College, but they need to get their old infrastructure fixed, or people aren't going to come to Marshall.
That's true. That's a valid point.
So that's the extent of my involvement, is to try to help them find some grants or funding to get this phase one of changing the transmission lines and isolation valves, and then they can continue to work on the rest of the project from there.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of these breaks corresponding with cold weather, so they get a little bit of a reprieve, I guess, for a
while.
Yeah.
But come late December, January, February, and quite frankly, I'm concerned that they won't have breaks before then. because you're dealing with very brittle infrastructure that, I mean, there's a lot of different things that can happen to cause it to break again, even before we get freezes and things such as that.
All right. So it's, I get, you're speaking with people in Austin. Are you feeling a sense of concern from them?
From Austin?
Yeah, from trying to help out.
Not really. They're very, man, they've been very, very supportive. But look, there's old communities from all over the state, maybe not as old as what Marshall is, but this is not unique to Marshall. This is happening around the state. That's why, the Water Development Board from last session received a $1.3 billion amount of money from our surplus in order to do grants to get monies out to these communities. That's where the $56 million came from for Marshall to fix their water treatment and their sewer treatment plants. So Marshall, it's not unique. But the thing is when, the different political administrations kick the can and say, well, turn the faucet on, water's coming out, we don't need to mess with that. They go off and spend the budget money on other things. However, from a city perspective, I learned early on as a mayor, what are the two biggest assets besides our citizens? What are the two biggest assets we have as a city? Our streets and our water and sewer infrastructure. That's what we have as assets. And if we don't take care of those, okay, it's going to cost us a lot more money down the road. It's like if you don't do things at your home and you just let it kind of go, let it go, finally the whole roof got to be changed instead of if you could have patched it. So it's you can pay now or pay a lot more later. And so I'm real optimistic that the Marshall City Council will work closely with the community to make sure they get the type of buy-in from the citizens in order to get this problem headed in the right direction.
All right. Anything you'd like to add?
Nope, I think that's pretty good.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jerry.
I think you covered everything.